I'm King Lincoln, a happy new year to you all, which means it's time for the Humble Choice January 2022 review. Where does the time go? A new year, a new bundle, and the same old me, though I am a little under the weather. This month we return to the 10-game lineup, and there's a lot of interesting choices and discussions to be had, but in case you're new to this, I check out each game for at least an hour, and I'm ready to tell you what I think about this month's offerings. We're going to be starting with the game I was the most excited for, and that is Mafia Definitive Edition, a classic game remastered with a more modern look. Let me start by saying Mafia can look like GTA at times, but this is most definitely not GTA. There's no options of which missions you're going to take, there is a large world, but you're really never allowed to free roam within the story itself, and the experience is fully story driven. But these are all things that allow Mafia to try to tell a stronger story, and at times it succeeds. However, it is a strong story in the 2002 style, which is when the game originally came out. In the 2020 remaster, which is the definitive edition we have here, much of Mafia feels dated. The gameplay and control choices feel a bit off, such as the X button to get into cars and open doors. The gunplay is quite weak, and the story has some odd discussions in the car. There's also numerous bugs, even though the game has been out for 18 months. The game actually froze on me while playing it for about 30 seconds straight. It stuttered a lot as well, and the controller icons only work if you use a very specific Steam configuration. Pick this up though if you want a story-based game or enjoy Mafia movies. This is a bit of a weaker story, but it's still very well told. Mafia is still a good game, and I'm willing to take another crack at it, though I am going to have to spend some time trying to fix those issues that I've seen, and there were quite a few, like a shockingly large amount for this title. Iron Harvest, an RTS based in World War I, with beers and giant mechs. Awesome. Iron Harvest reminds me a lot of Company of Heroes or Dawn of War. You take control of a squad of men and work your way through large maps. However, with a strong story, Iron Harvest gripped me early, and the main character was interesting. You start the game as Anna Coase, but also get a beer companion in the second mission, which you'll use to just tear up the enemy. After partnering with a couple of squads, the rest of the level has both a strong story and excellent gameplay. There are also 3 campaigns in the base game, each one coming from one of 3 factions, and each main character in the game appears to have an animal sidekick, the others being a tiger and a pair of wolves. Iron Harvest's campaign missions also have optional side missions and multiple challenges per map. So if you want a lot of content, there's that, as well as skirmish missions with their medal system, challenge maps with another medal system, and multiplayer. If that's not enough, there is a co-op mode for story as well, where both players control the same units, but there's a lot of opportunities for interesting coordination between them as well. Pick this up if you enjoy the RTS genre. If you like what you're seeing on screen, this is a no-brainer. The cutscenes are particularly good and the characters are interesting, but the gameplay feels tactical and refreshing rather than a mindless slog through fodder, which has me wanting to see quite a bit more. Project Winter. A survival game. No, wait, it's a social deduction game. No, it's a cluster bleep. Wait, it's all of these things together. Project Winter is an interesting game. There's 8 players, and each player is either a survivor or a traitor. The survivors try to get rescued, the traitors don't want to be rescued, and there's a couple objectives to complete to be rescued. In the 2 games I played, the survivors tried to restore power and then had to fix up a helipad. It's a good concept. The problem is, this is also a dense game, where the tutorial doesn't give you a ton of information, and I think because a lot of people are new to the game from Humble, they're not really playing it right. Communication is a bit light, there's no social deduction, and on both games, the Mega Blizzard killed the group, which apparently is an artificial time limit. At least I think that's what's going on. This is a game where you're going to have to learn the game, and probably one you should play with an established group, as the influx of new players and the fact that so few things are well explained is a barrier to entry. Pick this up if you want a more active Among Us. It's far more complicated than that, and players will have to work together rather than doing their own tasks, but this feels like it could be a really good game, though it's one that players will have to put in a lot of time and effort to understand. Rebel Cops. XCOM with cops. Not normal cops, but rebel cops. Rebel Cops is an interesting twist on the typical tactical game. Players play as rogue cops fighting against a corrupt city and trying to take out the bad guys. Usually players are outnumbered, underfunded, and relatively weak, so rather than slugging it out, Rebel Cops seems to focus a lot on stealth and working well there. However, much of the game is still heavy percentage-based gameplay. While the game is a vast improvement on This Is the Police or its sequel, it does have issues where the stealth is a mixture of systems that aren't the most informative. Not knowing what an enemy can see and lacking many attacks that are 100% guaranteed will upset some people. Limited saves will upset others, though players can turn on unlimited saves, but the game isn't intended to play that way. The gameplay feels okay, but not amazing. Pick this up if you like turn-based tactical games. Having to work your way through rooms and areas works well here, but there are reports of difficulty spikes, and if the game gets difficult, it's going to get frustrating as well, especially because one bad roll can take an entire mission's playthrough that was successful up to that point. Rustler, Grand Theft Horse. That's actually what they call it on Steam. Rustler is a medieval version of Grand Theft Auto, not the normal GTA that people think of, but the one that was on PlayStation 1 with the top-down view. It does quite well with it. Much of the game is going around to assist people, learning about their troubles, and usually murdering someone or a bunch of someones to fix minor issues and then create all new ones. Rustler tries very hard to be a funny game, and shockingly it succeeds at times. Whether it's a subtle reference like a modern parking system or a chalk outline of a murdered person on a horse, there's a great subtlety to its humor. However, it wasn't a consistently funny game, though I did find myself laughing more than I expected. Some of the references to pop culture did fall flat, and quite a few jokes were groaners, but it still had its moments. Even an overdone reference, such as the Spanish Inquisition, was still funny because it was more to the joke than just repeating the same gag as Monty Python. Pick this up if you like the idea of a top-down GTA where you're stealing horses and fighting knights. The game reminds me quite a bit of American Fugitive, but I feel like this is better written and more fun to play. I'm quite impressed at the quality of the title, and this company also made the 112 operator from October 2021's Humble Choice, though these are definitely quite different titles. The Henry Stickmin Collection, a collection of rather funny choose-your-own-adventure style games. The original Henry Stickmin were flash games where players chose one of up to 6 objects, and then the character would use that to accomplish some goals, such as breaking into a bank to steal money or breaking out of prison. Out of the choices, there would be multiple failures, each giving a unique death scene, and potentially multiple correct choices, each leading to a different scene. With multiple endings, a branching pathway, and tons of failure conditions to seek out, not to mention even more content, this is a very rich game. Now this is just a remake of the Flash games with similar names. While each title has been massively improved and the animation and voice acting here are fantastic, it doesn't really have much beyond what you'd find on YouTube watching someone else play. You choose an option, watch a usually funny vignette play out, and then choose something else and try to see everything. That's really the gameplay. In addition, the first 5 out of the 6 episodes are available for free in their original, though worse, Flash versions. Pick this up if you're enjoying what you're seeing. I actually like this game a lot. I laughed quite often and I think it's clever, but there is a limit to the content. If you want to see every failure and every ending, you're probably talking about maybe 2 to 3 hours at the most. There are a few collectibles as well, but at the end of the day, this is a short but very enjoyable game. And I want to bring up one last thing. This is actually made by the 2 founding members of Inner Sloth, who, if you don't know, also made Among Us. Yeah, the guys who made Among Us also created this game. That's just crazy. Farmer's Dynasty. 90 minutes of asking, where's the farming? I'm sure Farmer's Dynasty has some interesting farming gameplay, but the first hour and a half of the game involved walking through a slow tutorial with awful stock animations and then trying to fix up my house on a quest system. However, with one indicator in the center of the entire area, there was no clue what still had to be fixed up or where I had to go. Well, I could use my super sense to tell me what was broken, but that's only if it's visible. I kept finding little pieces to fix up, but with poor UI, poor information, and awful gameplay, I became rather annoyed by the game. What should have been just like a 10-minute task dragged on so long, I had to overplay the game and hope I could find the next scene multiple times. And even then, I still had to use a guide because it was obtuse, and yet it still wasn't done. If this is how the game starts, I can only imagine what hell waits if players continue playing. I'll admit, I didn't see much beyond the repairs that took entirely too long, but that's giving this game 50% longer than almost every other game I've reviewed over the last year. I really gave this game a shot. Pick this up if you want a bad simulator. I mean, listen, I heard about this bundle. I was actually excited because I really want to play a farming game, and Humble provided one. However, the section played out like a really bad version of House Flipper, and now that I'm done, I actually started pricing out if I could get Farming Simulator. This game really made me want to buy another game rather than continue to play what's on my hard drive, and I wish I could enjoy this one. And before someone says, oh, well, it's supposed to be a life simulator, well, then I'd probably just play My Time at Porsche or Stardew Valley instead, and similarly, forcing the player to spend so long repairing the farm was a very poor use of my time. Between the Stars, a spacer tale with a strong story. Between the Stars has the player piloting a ship as they explore the universe. At least, that's what I believe the main game is about. I spent my hour playing through the extremely good prologue. While the prologue uses a predefined character and a powerful ship, the main game requires the player to create their own character and start with a much weaker ship. There's a narrative the player is supposed to follow throughout the game, and I found the combat a bit easy but very enjoyable. That being said, there is an issue. While the game was really fun to play, it's been in early access for about 2 years, and worse, the developers are actively working on another early access game, though they do appear to be committed to finishing the game in the first half of 22. I hope they get there. There are only 2 devs according to them, which on its own is extremely impressive, and there are different reports on the length of the game, but it appears to be at least 10 hours of content. A majority of people seem to be saying around 15, though there are reports of people saying 30 to 40 at least to get to the end of the game where it is now. Pick this up if you like what you're seeing. I really enjoyed the game in my hour, and I'm looking forward to playing more, though admittedly I'm only in the prologue section, which should be the most polished part of the game, but there was still at least one completely epic moment in the story. However, it is still an early access game, so it is a small amount of a gamble now, but as it is here, I think it's fine. Retrowave. This game. Retrowave is simple, like as simple as can be. Drive for as long as you can and dodge traffic. Get near misses and drive in oncoming traffic and just keep driving, and that's really it. After 5 minutes, I was looking for any level of complexity. There are 20 cars and 20 tracks that all play the same, and there are 4 difficulties, but at the end of the day, I had seen almost everything the game had to offer in 20 minutes, and then I played another 40 because I'll put in the time. But after playing the game, something was off, something bothered me, so I kept digging. I found this Unity asset pack, which has the exact same UI in multiple locations, but particularly noticed the same gameplay. Now, there was some work here, but likely using something like, well, maybe this, which could be the skybox and road that we've been driving on, maybe a few small tweaks, but the gameplay UI and modes are still the same as the original pack. There are a few assets added to the pack, new cars, but in general, this is just a Unity asset pack by itself. It also retails for $2, is usually on sale for $1, and has DLC that is just a huge amount of credits so you can just unlock everything instead of playing the game. I can't recommend this. There's nothing wrong with checking this game out if you got everything else, but this is a $2 game at best, and it's just an asset flip. The developer Rewind app has released 67 games on Steam in 4 years. That's more than 1 a month. Almost all of them appear to be asset flips, and they all run for $2. I'm going to move on, but I'll talk more about this in the conclusion. Also though, once I found the asset, I was able to find 3 more games using that same asset, and I'm sure there's hundreds more. Midnight Protocol, a keyboard-based hacking game. Midnight Protocol calls itself a tactical RPG, though I kind of disagree. Midnight Protocol is a strange keyboard-based game that completely removes the mouse from the gameplay. It also is a hacking simulator where players have to breach networks that are more similar to like Uplink or Hacknet, though controlling the entire experience through a command line makes for a very interesting experience. I'm actually a little shocked to announce that this isn't made by Zachtronics, yet really feels like a Zachtronics style game. The entire game gives the player the power to breach networks and then add more choices such as robbing random people and earning profits as a black hat hacker, or trying to remain noble as a white hat hacker. There is a strong narrative as well, which is intriguing. Pick this up if you're willing to play a keyboard-based command line game. The game is interesting and unique as you'll see on screen, but if you aren't interested in a game that only allows the player to use a keyboard to interact with it, this one probably won't be for you. It is a special game, yet I adore this one. And that's 10 games. Once again, there's only 10, and similarly, there's no bonus game this month. So what about this month's offerings? Well, I've gone back and forth on this. I personally picked the bundle up and would have done so gladly just to get Mafia for $12, which is the price I paid. I wanted to complete my collection and replay the original, and now I can, though the game is noticeably rough like I mentioned. At the same time, I'm not sure if there's a true standout game. If you weren't already going to buy any of these titles or aren't interested in them because of their genres specifically, I don't know if there's anything that is a must-buy on its own, and almost all of them go for under $10 during sale like the recent winter sale. Worse humbles back to just repackaging games. Between the Stars was in the Choose Wisely bundle, Project Winter was just in the Yogscast Jingle Jam of last month, and Retrowave was in the Early Access All-Star bundle 4 months ago. And I want to go deeper to discuss that game, Retrowave. Let me start by saying there's nothing illegal about an asset flip. However, they are low effort and not something many people want to support. Using an asset is a great way for a developer to get content and improve on it. However, the game as it appears is the exact same gameplay as that purchased asset. Now, if Humble didn't realize it was an asset flip, that's understandable. It was bundled before, of course, but maybe no one told him. However, it is also a $2 game with minimal gameplay. It doesn't really deserve to be on this list in the first place. On the other hand, if they knew it was an asset flip, that's really a new low. And that's saying something for a company that keeps releasing multiplayer games that are going to be dead in a month. Though I have to say, Beyond the Wire is still looking relatively healthy, though unable to support more than a single full server at peak each day, still cool. Now, I did reach out to Humble for a comment, but with a 4-day turnaround time in response, I wasn't expecting one before this video was ready. It's still a bad look, and I will try to update you all somehow. Now, the idea for going to 10 games is to improve the quality of each title, but most of the titles were relatively cheap because the Steam sales just ended. I'm not asking for a mega title, but at least some value would have been appreciated. With that said, let's get on to the tier list. We're sticking with the American educational system, A through F, and I think we all know what is getting an F. It's Retrowave. I could talk about this more, but I think I've said enough. Asset Flip, $2 game, has been bundled previously, and honestly this shakes my faith in Humble more than a lot of things. That's a bad choice. Moving up from the F tier, we have one game in D. It's Farmer's Dynasty. I trust Farmer's Dynasty is eventually about farming, or at least better than the repair simulator I've seen, but my session also ended with me just ramming my house with my tractor out of frustration. And you know what? I feel better. Days later and multiple other games played, but I actually feel better now. And that's the D tier. Let's just take a moment and look at this list. At least we got those 2 titles out of the way. The rest are a little more varied, but at least I can say some people will enjoy most of them, and many do actually. The first game in C is Project Winter. Now this is low on my list. I think with the right group of people and the right training this could easily move up. However, it is so dependent on who you're partnered with and so much knowledge base that it also could be lower if you get the wrong group. 2 games with 0 chance of winning as a survivor was a really bad opening. People do at least voice chat, but it's a much harder game to get started than it needs to be. And the other game in the C tier is Rebel Cops. This is probably on the cusp of being a B, I just don't know for sure. Limited save slots will probably get annoying, and if there is a difficulty spike, it will be extremely frustrating. Having to manage your money as well means you want to try to perfect most scenarios, and that means getting lucky with where you spend your save slots and probably save scumming. This isn't bad, of course, but it's also something I'm not sure I'd recommend over other tactical games, which there is a lot of out there. And that's what I have for the C tier. Now, B is once again the largest category, but the line between B and A is also fuzzier than normal. Still, we'll start from the bottom and work our way up the tier. Our first title in B tier is Rustler. I like Rustler a lot, but the humor is going to be hit or miss, and I already felt the humor being a little more in the vein of sight gags that wear off in that first hour. Still, it is a very competent GTA clone, and it's one that's clever enough that I think I still will play more of it. The second title in B tier is probably my favorite of the month. It's Midnight Protocol. Yeah, I found this game to be unique and interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing more quite a bit. But I'm also fully aware it's a game designed to be perfect for me, and I struggle to say someone else will appreciate it as much without being, part programmer. Still, I hope this gets more attention. It deserves it. Next up, we have Mafia Definitive Edition. I keep moving this title around. It's either in A because of the size and scope of the game, the bottom of B because of the numerous issues it has, or, right here. It's a game I wanted the bundle for, but now that I have it, I'm not sure when I'm going to try to finish this game off, and actually, there's quite a few other titles this month that I want to play first. Though, given enough free time, unlimited, I'd probably play through this one eventually. Finally, in the B tier, we have the Henry Stickmin collection. I laughed my butt off while playing this game. It has a lot of good references, clever jokes, and great production values. However, it's kind of simplistic. There's a lot of content here, but it's just selecting options and seeing what silly, unexpected thing happens. That's great, but that's going to keep it out of the top in my book. Still, I really enjoyed this one. I will be back. And that brings us to the A tier with our final 2 games. Now, I want to say this is a little shakier as mentioned. I'm going off of the experience I had rather than the research I put in after or the opinions of others. Let's just get to it. The bottom of A tier is Between the Stars. It has an arcade feeling to its movement, and I only saw the prologue, but that made me want to play the final version when it finally comes out. The epic battle you're seeing on the screen was an act ender. I was just pumped during it. It's just a knockdown, drag-out fight that lasted for almost 10 minutes and felt like the world was ending, which is exactly what it was supposed to be. This was extremely fun to play through, and I will be back. And the best game of this month is Iron Harvest. This is an excellent game and well worth playing if you're a fan of the RTS or tactical squad games. There is a meaty campaign that will take players about 12 hours, additional goals to allow players to keep replaying the level, and even more content and multiplayer outside of that. This is well worth checking out. And that's what I have for this month. So now it's your turn. What did I get right or what did I get wrong? Let me know, whether it's down in the comments below or on Discord. I'm going to throw a link to the Discord server in the description. It's actually becoming a place I really love hanging out, talking to different people, and there's a real active crowd growing there, so I'm looking forward to welcoming you as well. Some of you may have noticed my voice sounds just a bit different. Maybe I'm a little slower than I normally am. I'm a little under the weather today. I apologize, though I wanted to ensure this video came out in a timely manner as it appears people rely on it, but don't worry, I'll rest up and be ready for the next one. Let's just do the YouTube mantra. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell. I mean, come on, you all know what to do by now, and I hope you're looking forward to more from me. We have the monthly Game Pass video coming up, as well as my top games of 2021. In that video, I will be talking about the best of last year's Humble Choices. Feel free to leave your picks for your favorite game or your favorite choice from last year in the comments as well. I'm really curious about what everyone's going to pick. See you next time.